Okay, imagine this. An animal that can regrow its brain, its heart, even its limbs if they get damaged. And get this, it basically stays a baby its entire life. Sounds pretty wild, right? Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're plunging into the frankly incredible world of the axolotl. You've sent us a whole stack of sources, everything from hard science guides to really interesting cultural insights, and our job is to pull out the most important nuggets of knowledge about this amazing Mexican amphibian. We're aiming to understand what an axolotl actually is, why it's so biologically weird, its really precarious situation out in the wild, and how it's inspiring some potentially groundbreaking medical research.
Yeah, it's fascinating, isn't it, how this one creature manages to embody so much. You've got ancient mythology, modern pop culture icons, and some of the biggest mysteries in biology all wrapped up together. We're going to unpack why this water monster is, well, a whole lot more than just a cute face.
Right, let's kick things off there. What exactly is an axolotl? I mean, we see pictures, they look like salamanders, but it feels like there's more to the story.
You're spot on. The axolotl, or Ambystoma mexicanum, if we're being scientific, is a very specific type of salamander. Technically, it's the neotenic larva of the Mexican salamander.
Right.
And that name, axolotl, it comes straight from the classical Aztec Nahuatl language. It means something like water dog or maybe water monster. It's a tailed amphibian, part of the Ambystomidae family.
Neoteny, okay, that sounds like a key concept. What does neoteny actually mean for the axolotl? Why is that so important?
Right, this is where it gets really interesting. Neoteny basically means the axolotl reaches sexual maturity. It can reproduce, but it does so while staying in its larval form its whole life.
So it never grows up, in a sense.
Exactly. Unlike most amphibians that go through metamorphosis, tadpole to frog, larva to salamander, the axolotl just skips that. It keeps all its juvenile features, most noticeably those amazing external gills sticking out from its head.
Wow.
And the primary reason for this seems to be that its thyroid gland just doesn't pump out enough of the hormone thyroxine. That's the hormone that usually triggers metamorphosis in other amphibians.
So because it stays in this larval stage, what does it actually look like? If I saw one, how would I know it's an axolotl?
Well, they're actually quite large for an amphibian, usually around 20 to 30 centimeters long, maybe over 300 grams in weight sometimes.
That's pretty big.
It is. They have this very characteristic large, sort of flattened head, a really long tail, maybe 70% of their body length, and 4 limbs, of course. But the most obvious feature has got to be those 3 pairs of feathery, plumose external gills.
Right, the ones that look like little trees growing out of their head.
Kind of, yeah. They're on either side of the head, packed with these tiny filaments, super efficient for breathing underwater. And in the lighter colored ones, like albinos, the gills can look bright pink or red just because you can see the blood vessels right through them.
And they always look like they're smiling.
Yeah, they do. They have this really wide mouth that gives them that permanent sort of smile. Small, black, beady eyes, 4 fingers on the front paws, 5 on the back. Their skin's smooth, but you'll see these vertical grooves along their sides, maybe 15 or 16 of them, which gives their body a slightly ringed look.
And color-wise, are they all the same drab color, or is there variation?
Good question. In the wild, they're typically a dark brown, maybe reddish brown. Helps them blend in,
Camouflage. Makes sense.
But in captivity, breeders have gone wild. You get albinos, totally white with those red gills, golden ones that are yellowish, harlequins, which are sort of mottled black and white, and melanists, which are completely black. So yeah, quite a range you can find.
Definitely a memorable creature then. Very distinct. Okay, so these really unique animals, they're not found just anywhere, are they? Where in the world do they actually come from?
No, they're incredibly specific. The axolotl is endemic to Mexico, like only Mexico. And even there, it's exclusively found within the lake system of the Mexico Valley. Historically, that meant Lake Xochimilco and Lake Chalco.
And I understand Xochimilco is basically the only place left for them now.
Tragically, yes. Lake Xochimilco is now the only natural habitat where wild axolotls still exist. It's this really complex system of canals, clear water historically, lots of vegetation. It's quite high up, too, about 2,300 meters above sea level.
What about water conditions there?
Relatively cool. Temperatures usually range from maybe 13 to 20 degrees Celsius in summer and then drop down to around 10 Celsius in the winter.
It sounds almost peaceful. But I know the reality is quite different. Their wild population is in serious trouble, isn't it? What's the current status?
It is, and that really raises the critical question. Why is such an extraordinary creature facing extinction? The IUCN, that's the International Union for Conservation of Nature, estimates there are maybe only 50 to 1,000 adult axolotls left in the wild.
50, that's terrifyingly low.
It is. They're listed as critically endangered on the IUCN Red List. It's about as bad as it gets.
So what's causing this? What are the biggest threats pushing them towards the edge?
Well, if you look at the big picture, it's a combination of things, mostly human-caused, unfortunately. Rapid urbanization around Mexico City is a huge factor, leading to the draining of parts of their lake habitat.
Loss of home, basically.
Exactly. Then there's severe water pollution, runoff from industry, from agriculture. It just degrades the water quality they absolutely depend on.
Okay.
Another major problem was the introduction of invasive fish species. Things like tilapia and perch, they weren't naturally there.
And they cause problems how?
Two ways, mainly. They compete with axolotls for the same food sources, like insects and small crustaceans. And worse, they actually prey on the young axolotls.
Oh, wow. So they're competition and predators.
Precisely. And then on top of all that, you've got increasing tourism development, more housing being built right in their native areas. It just keeps squeezing their available space.
So this incredible animal, so important for science, is just barely holding on in its only natural home. It really hits home how much impact our activities can have on biodiversity. Okay, let's shift focus now to maybe the most famous thing about axolotls. Their almost unbelievable regenerative abilities. This is their biological superpower, right? What can they actually regrow?
Right, this is where things get truly mind-blowing. Axolotls have this regenerative capacity that's just unparalleled in vertebrates. They can fully restore lost limbs, arms, legs, tails, their external gills, perfectly, no scarring.
Okay, limbs and tails, that's amazing in itself, but I hear it goes further.
Oh, much further. What's even more remarkable is their ability to regenerate parts of their eyes if they're damaged, sections of their brain, even internal organs, including parts of their heart.
Their brain and heart. That sounds like pure science fiction. How on earth do they manage that? What do we know about the mechanism?
Well, science is definitely digging into it. Recent studies have started shedding light on some key pieces. For instance, back in 2023, scientists at Stanford found axolotls have a unique version of a protein called MTOR.
MTOR?
Yeah, and this specific form seems to ramp up protein production incredibly efficiently after an injury, even though it costs a lot of energy. It helps fuel that rapid regrowth. And interestingly, this discovery might also help explain why they're so resistant to developing cancer, which is another puzzle scientists are working on.
That's fascinating. And wasn't there even newer research about how they know what needs regrowing? Like, how does it know to grow back just a finger versus the whole arm?
Yes, you're probably thinking of the research from Northeastern University around 2025. They identified the crucial roles of retinoic acid, which is related to vitamin A, and an enzyme called CYP26B1.
Okay, how do those work together?
Basically, the axolotl cells can sense a gradient, like a concentration map, of this retinoic acid. And that gradient is created and controlled by the CYP26B1 enzyme. This map, this gradient, acts like a biological GPS system. It tells the cells that are rushing to the injury site exactly where they are and what specific part of the limb needs to be rebuilt.
So it's like they have positional memory.
Exactly. That's the term often used. They inherently understand the blueprint of their body and know precisely what's missing and needs replacing, whether it's just the tip of a toe or the entire leg from the shoulder down.
Incredible. So connecting these dots, what's the potential payoff for us? What are the big hopes for medicine coming out of axolotl research?
Well, if you think bigger picture, studying these mechanisms in axolotls could genuinely revolutionize regenerative medicine. I mean, the potential is enormous.
Like what specifically?
We could be looking at entirely new ways to develop treatments for skin regeneration, say for burn victims. Understanding how they regenerate could help us figure out how to activate or enhance similar, maybe dormant mechanisms in humans. And the really big hope is for therapies for things we currently have few answers for, like severe spinal cord injuries or brain damage.
Wow.
And what's really compelling, sort of a recent realization, is that modern research suggests humans actually have many of the same basic molecular tools. We have retinoic acid, we have the enzyme CYP26B1, we even have a related developmental gene called SHOX.
So we have the parts list, potentially.
It increasingly looks like it. The ingredients might already be there within us, which suggests that finding ways to, reactivate or properly orchestrate these pathways could open up completely new possibilities for human regenerative therapies down the line. It's incredibly hopeful.
Absolutely. Now, shifting from the lab bench, some people actually keep these guys as pets, right? So it's sort of perpetually young. What's their typical lifespan, and how do they reproduce?
Right. They are quite popular in the pet trade. In the wild, their lifespan is shorter, maybe 5 to 6 years on average. But in captivity, with good care, they can live much longer, 15, sometimes even up to 20 years.
Wow, that's a commitment.
It is. They reach sexual maturity relatively young, usually between 12 and 18 months old when they're about 15 centimeters long. Their peak fertility is around 2 to 3 years old, and the females can lay a lot of eggs, anywhere from 200 to maybe 1,000 eggs at a time.
Fancy, goodness.
Yeah. They usually attach them to aquatic plants, typically in shaded spots. Spawning happens mostly in spring and autumn. The little larvae develop their front legs in about 6 weeks, back legs around 8 weeks, and they'll reach maybe 10 centimeters long by the time they're 3 or 4 months old.
So for someone listening who might be intrigued by the idea of keeping an axolotl, what are the absolute must-knows for caring for them properly?
Okay, yeah, that's an important question. Responsible care is definitely key. First off, tank size. You need a minimum of about 40 to 50 liters per adult axolotl. And really, you want to prioritize the floor space, the bottom surface area, rather than the height of the tank. They're bottom dollars.
Got it. Floor space over height. What else?
Temperature. This is critical. The ideal range is between 14 and 20 degrees Celsius. Absolutely, positively do not let it go above 24 degrees Celsius.
Why is that so crucial?
Higher temperatures are incredibly stressful for them and make them highly susceptible to fungal infections, which can often be fatal. So, cool water is a must. You'll need a powerful external filter to keep the water clean and good aeration, like an air stone, for oxygen.
What about things like heaters or lights?
Nope. Unlike a lot of aquarium pets, they absolutely do not need a heater. In fact, you often need a chiller to keep the water cool enough, depending on your room temperature. And they don't appreciate bright lighting either. Subdued lighting is better. And of course, they live entirely underwater. They never need to come out.
Okay, what about putting other fish in the tank? Or keeping multiple axolotls together?
Generally, they're best kept alone or maybe in a pair if the tank is large enough. Young ones, especially, can be a bit nippy and aggressive towards each other, sometimes biting off limbs, although they do grow back.
Right, regeneration.
Exactly. As for fish, compatibility is extremely limited. Most fish require warmer water than axolotls can tolerate. Plus, axolotls are predators. They might try to eat small fish, and larger fish might nip at those delicate external gills. So usually, a species-only tank is recommended.
Makes sense. And feeding, what do these water monsters eat?
Well, in the wild, they're predators, eating small fish, worms, insect larvae, snails, mollusks, even fish eggs. In captivity, you can replicate that pretty well. Live foods like earthworms are great. Frozen options like bloodworms are common too. There are also specialized sinking pellets made specifically for axolotls.
How often do they need to eat?
It depends on their age and size. Little ones under 15 centimeters probably need feeding daily. Larger juveniles, maybe every other day. And adults over a year old might only need feeding every 3 or 4 days.
And how much?
A good rule of thumb is a portion size roughly about half the size of their head. And crucially, always remove any uneaten food right away. Axolotls are messy eaters, and leftover food will quickly foul the water, which is bad for their health.
Right, water quality is key. It definitely sounds like a unique pet with specific needs. Not your average goldfish.
Not at all. A rewarding pet, but one that requires commitment and understanding their specific needs.
Beyond the science lab and the aquarium you mentioned earlier, they have this deep cultural significance too.
Oh, absolutely. What's really fascinating is how far back their story goes. They have these incredibly deep roots in Aztec mythology. The axolotl was strongly linked to the god Azolot. Yeah, he was the god of lightning, death, and misfortune, but also sometimes seen as a guide for the dead. He was said to be able to transform himself, sometimes appearing as a dog and sometimes as an axolotl, apparently to avoid being sacrificed. So the axolotl was seen as this sacred, almost mystical animal. It symbolized things like wealth, prosperity, and even rebirth, likely tied to its regenerative abilities.
That's incredible. A sacred water monster. And then fast forward to today, they seem to be having a massive cultural moment, right?
They really are. Their appearance is just so unique, so quirky, and kind of endearing that they've become a huge hit in modern pop culture. The video game Minecraft is a big one. They were added a few years ago and became instantly popular.
Ah, the Minecraft axolotls. Yes.
Exactly. They're all over social media, too. Tons of videos and memes. And it's a point of national pride in Mexico. They're actually featured on the 50 peso banknote.
No way.
Yeah.
Yep. And lets people, playfully compare their look to Toothless, the dragon character from the movie How to Train Your Dragon.
Yeah.
That wide head, the big eyes, the sort of smile. You can see the resemblance. It just adds to their modern charm.
Definitely. So, okay, let's try and pull all these threads together. What's the big takeaway here? From being this ancient water monster to a, cutting-edge scientific marvel, the axolotl is just captivating.
It really is.
This neopenic life strategy, staying young forever, those completely mind-bending regenerative powers, and then this rich cultural history. It all makes it one of the most, if not the most unique amphibians we know of.
I think this deep dive really highlights two crucial things. First, just how fascinating this animal is in its own right. But second, and maybe more urgently, it underscores the critical importance of conservation.
The knowledge we're gaining, especially about regeneration, holds such immense promise for medicine. Real hope for healing injuries and conditions that seem insurmountable right now. So, protecting this critically endangered species in Lake Sokomilco, its last wild refuge, isn't just about saving the axolotl for its own sake, though that's vital too. It's about safeguarding the incredible potential it holds for all of humanity.
That's a powerful point, and it leaves you thinking as you reflect on the axolotl's almost magical ability to regrow parts of itself perfectly. Consider this. If this one little amphibian holds keys that could potentially unlock human tissue regeneration, what other unbelievable secrets are hidden in the natural world? Secrets we haven't even started to look for yet. Or maybe, more chillingly, secrets we might be unknowingly destroying, losing forever before we even grasp their significance. What part of the axolotl story, its potential or its peril, really makes you stop and think about what else might be out there?